And welcome back to the Lance Roberts Show podcast right here at realinvestmentadvice.com. And stick around. In January, we are back live on the radio starting 6 a.m. weekdays. So we'll be getting that link to you as well right on our website as realinvestmentadvice.com. So, Danielle, we left off in the break talking a little bit about Jerome Powell, the efficacy of bailouts and, of course, stimulus. And, you know, we saw the U.S. government go to tremendous lengths during the 2009, 10, 11, 12 years. In fact, if we go back and we add up all the different bailouts and supports that we did from HAMP to HARP to Maiden Lane to the Federal Reserve balance sheet, $33 trillion were thrown into the economy in various forms to get, you know, a growth of about 2.5% economically over the last decade. So here we are moving into, you know, potentially the next recessionary cycle. I mean, look, you know, when you talk about recession, everybody immediately like, oh, you know, you're talking about a recession. It's horrible. Shouldn't even mention the word. Look, we're a decade into an economic expansion. Just by the laws of nature, you're going to have a recession at some point, whether it's next year or a year from now. You know, it doesn't matter. The recession will eventually come. But the difference is that we are currently running a $1 trillion deficit in an economy that's still growing, which, you know, leaves a lot less ammunition unless you're planning on running a $2 or $3 trillion deficit during the next recession. Do you and you kind of mentioned this a little bit earlier, Danielle, which is, you know, the graciousness of our neighbors to keep buying our debt and keep supporting our spending, and particularly during a recessionary drag. You know, is that the risk that may come back to get us?
It's a very real risk going forward. Again, you know, as the U.S. has flexed its reserve currency status muscle, a lot of countries have grown to be very resistant to the U.S. dominance policy. You've seen European policymakers, for example, come out recently and say things need to be done on the world stage to unseat the dollar and its reserve currency status. Right. So there's definitely a lot of motivation and impetus and momentum outside of our borders for us to not have that dominant position, for us to not be able to run $2 or $3 trillion deficits if we were to, say, launch an infrastructure spending program to address the oncoming recession. So it remains to be seen what the country has in terms of ammunition globally and how much our neighbors are willing to effectively float this country's economy. So, you know, it is very concerning to me that we have so little both monetary policy and fiscal policy ammunition stored up headed into what we know to be a downturn in the economy, which, as you say, is inevitable. You know, the benefits of the tax cuts are going to be wearing thin going into next year. Households have grown accustomed to their larger paychecks. So we're not going to see as much of a marginal boost to consumption, which, by the way, over the past year has been led by the lowest income earners who tend to spend every marginal dollar by which their paychecks grow. So we're not going to see that. We've seen confidence among upper and middle income earners who comprise 83% of consumption in this country. We've seen their confidence slip below that of the lowest income earners. So again, my concern is that we don't have enough dry powder, whether you're talking about on the part of Congress or that of the Federal Reserve, to combat what's to come.
Well, look, I think you go one step further. You could even say the dry powder of our households. You know, the economy is driven 70% by consumption. And no matter how many stats you look at, you know, 60, 70, 80% of the economy can't come up with $500 for an emergency. You know, there's no dry powder in the households either.
No, and that's the case. You know, it's interesting. A Goldman Sachs conference that was held earlier this week came to the conclusion that we've seen peak household borrowing. You know, if that is the case, then that portends very poorly for a consumption-driven economy as ours is, and it also squares the circle with the fact that upper and middle income earners' confidence has taken a hit of late. You have to have them on board with supporting this economy, or things really do begin to implode. And we go back to the original piece of this segment, which is talking about how much stimulus can be put out into the economy on the part of the Federal Reserve, on the part of Uncle Sam.
So, you know, I've thrown a lot of questions at you, Danielle, today, and I always appreciate your time, and it's always great talking with you because, you know, it's always a good debate that we have. What am I missing? You know, is there something you're looking at right now that's kind of the wow moment that you're really paying attention to that we haven't talked about?
Well, I think that we should be paying very close attention, especially in cities like Houston and Dallas, to our municipality sensitivity to any declines in risky asset prices. We don't have very much in the way of dry powder as a state and or as cities in Texas. I'm writing about this for this week's newsletter. We don't have very much wiggle room if some of our largest pensions take the hit that they appear to be poised to take. And this is something that people will say, wow, that came out of left field. But no, it has been a known for a very long period of time, and will actually put the stalwart of Texas growth that has been leading the rest of the nation at high risk in this next downturn. And I think it's something that should be on people's radars.
I don't disagree. I've written articles about the coming pension crisis, and I absolutely agree with you. I think it's one of those things that's way overlooked. It's a $4 to $5 trillion problem that's going to require another government bailout, because there's no way the government's going to allow a lot of these municipalities and pensionees, lose their pensions. So you can almost bet on the fact that there's going to be a rush to the well for the taxpayer to bail out these pensions. But on top of that, look, we've got oil prices sliding back below $50 a barrel here recently. And to your point about the stalwart driver of the economy, a lot of the jobs that are, and people don't really understand this, but when you create a job in the oil and gas field, in particular, of course, I'm in Houston, I'm in Texas, so we're very dependent on oil. But a job in the oil is equal to about 2.3 jobs in a services sector. It's a higher paying job, requires more technical skills in a lot of cases, and in the downfield from an oil and gas job, because of all the other services that are required, from shipping to trucking to manufacturing to hotels and restaurants, is much higher than, and that's what we call a multiplier effect, is much higher in the oil and gas industry than we've seen in others. In fact, your very own Richard Fisher did a report on this back during the financial crisis, talking about the very big impact of the oil and gas sector on the entire employment sector of the country.
Absolutely. If you look at the state of Texas, the fastest growth rate, even though the sector itself does not directly employ a lot of Texans, the growth rate of somewhere around 18% so far in 2018 is head and shoulders above that of any other industry. And as you say, there is this multiplier effect. And lo and behold, in the latest Beige Book reading that we got out, it showed that confidence in the Dallas area, in the Dallas Federal Reserve District, which of course includes Houston, and the fastest growing area of Texas, which has been Midland, but that confidence here has begun to slide, and that is the downside of slippage in oil prices. I understand that it is an effective income tax break for average American households. I filled up for $1.99 a gallon a few days ago. That's definitely a benefit, but by the same token, the multiplier effect on the way down can be much more severe on this state's economy, which happens to be the 10th largest in the world if you were to look at the Texas economy as a standalone.
Absolutely. Danielle, we appreciate your time always, and we wish you the best. And of course, be sure and follow and keep up with Danielle DiMartino-Booth on her website at Quill Intelligence. Get her Daily Feather writing. It's absolutely great. Follow her on Twitter as well. She's a great Twitter follower. Somebody is always putting out great information, great content. Danielle, thank you so much, and we'll talk to you again real soon.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Danielle DiMartino-Booth. We'll be right back on the Lance Roberts Show podcast right here at realinvestmentadvice.com.
Want a longer talk with Lance about your money? Request a personal one-on-one at realinvestmentadvice.com.